Okay, so we are here with Joker Out, the shagadelic Slovenian band who took Liverpool by storm last year with their hit Carpe Diem. They followed that up with the single Novi Val and an English version that featured Elvis Costello. The Sunny Side of London is streaming on all platforms now. Welcome, guys.
Welcome. Thank you.
No, I think we just wanted to start and talk about the sort of history of the band.
I guess that in 2012, I formed a band called Apocalypsa. It was at the beginning mostly a cover band. And that's how that's how I met Chris. Just him coming to a show that we played in their primary school for like the end of the year or something. Bruno Mars and Jason Mraz, if I remember correctly. And Bigfoot Mama, which is Chris's father, was the guitarist and lyricist of the band. So the first words I've ever heard out of Chris's mouth was, "That song doesn't use distortion on guitar." And he just went away.
Sticking with the earliest version of the band. So can you talk a little bit about Käärijä Krij and what the inspiration was for it?
Isn't it bizarre how we were like teenagers? We created like the stupidest music video ever. And now like serious journalists are watching.
Oh, we're not serious.
It was also the first song ever that I wrote in, let's say, completion. And the moment I wrote it, I remember just like being, oh my God, this is a hit.
And then you took a break in 2019. What was that period like? And what inspired you to come back together?
So that was the time after the release of our second single, which was, in comparison to the first one, Käärijä Krij, really successful. And people started noticing us outside of the little bubble that we had. But somehow, creatively, we didn't see where it was going. But the good thing is that right before we took the hiatus, we jammed out a song idea that I had. And like after 4 months of not playing together, we went to get some coffee, and Chris showed me the demo recording, like a voice note recording of what we played there. And a few days later, we started doing this song, which in the end ended up being Gola, which was the first song ever for us to go like outside of just the national radio.
Now that I think about it, one thing which maybe also held us back before Gola happened was that we had this other producer who produced Mamle no Telo.
Mm-hmm.
And then before Gola, we started to work with this other producer who we still work with now. That was Žarko Pak. And he really took us into another direction.
And he is now the sixth member of the band.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because Gola does have such a different sound, and it does seem like listening to your work, it's the moment when things changed. I think Omamalo Tello and Käärijä Krij. I'm sorry to every...
You're doing really good, by the way.
Incredible.
But the early songs, they have almost 90s grunge feel, and then Gola, and then Umasane Misley. I'm sorry again. But Umasane Misley as an album really feels like where you found your kind of 70s shagadelic retro rock sound.
Jare he's a 60s guy. He produced all of these legendary artists. And one of those happened to be also Bigfoot Mama, where my father played in. And our family and Jare's family were family friends.
Do you and Jare ever complain about your dad together? Said
Jare has such a personality. We make fun of my dad and other artists he works with, and he makes fun of us with the other artists he works with.
He's like the kind of guy who, when you're with him, makes you feel like you're like really bad and shitty. We all consider him like an uncle or something.
Yeah, a strange uncle,
like Rick and Morty uncle.
Yeah.
In the COVID times, actually, we got a lot of recognition. So basically, the band got, I would say, 300% bigger in the times of COVID because we really used the media space that we were allowed to have, and somehow managed to sell out 2 shows before we announced the album. Yeah.
And we wanted to release it in March of 2020.
Why didn't that happen?
Nobody knows. And we had already a lot of the material prepared, but it was honestly not up to par. And so COVID was a blessing in disguise for us.
Yeah.
Because it allowed us for a year and a half to rethink the whole thing. And that also brought us to one of our biggest decisions yet, which was to switch out our drummer. And that's when Jure came in. That's when we had to make our first big and
horribly grown-up decision of letting someone go after like basically 9 years of being together. The drummer was with me from 12 years of age on. When you have to decide after 9 years of having to let your best friend go is really like the hardest thing possible.
But we did, and then the album came together much more.
But we did.
We just got, there was a little window between the second and third wave of COVID in Slovenia where we could have these shows, and that was in October of 2021.
Yeah.
We 1 week after the shows, it was full lockdown again, and we had
we caused a big spike of COVID probably. Yeah, like everyone who was at that show got sick. That would,
I don't know, but as they say, Carpe Diem, right?
yeah. On the second album, Demoni, I really took the turn and wrote everything like directly for myself. Novi Val has an interesting story. We were in the studio creating Demoni and we were one song out. So one song was missing. And we had huge fires in Slovenia in the karst region. And it felt like we were like obligated to say something about it. Like we are really ripping our world apart ourselves. And so the first line, which means where do we go from here if we're already like setting our horizon on fire, came to life. And then Novi Val, New Wave.
You guys are rockers, which is not necessarily, Eurovision's strongest suit historically. So what was your relationship to the contest like growing up?
I think we all said that Eurovision has always been like a family, like a second Christmas, basically. Like the whole family gathers around TV, and I've been very much attracted to how chaotic and how diverse the competition was.
I've never considered myself a rocker. I'm much more of a poppy guy if you look at my playlist, I guess. So Eurovision was really like spot on for me. I love all the glitter and the glam about it. But yeah, Ruslana and Lordi era was the time that I started like actively noticing what's going on the stage. So I've always been a huge fan and always thought about what it has to be like to stand on that stage. So it actually happening is something still surreal to me. And looking back at the footage, it's still hard to like put together that it's actually us who is on the stage.
My first earliest memory of Eurovision is Lordi winning in 2006. And I thought, okay, this is really interesting. But then I don't know what happened. In a couple of years, I didn't really follow it so much, but my family watched it every year. But like when Satellite happened in 2010, that revitalized my interest in Eurovision. And after that were my golden years of Eurovision. It was the Azerbaijan song, which I really love, Running Scared. Actually, we met Eli, which was like, I was struck. That was great. And then 2012, like that was Euphoria. Yeah.
So then moving to the selection process for Slovenia, it moved to an internal process for your year.
Because your act was so successful, would you say that like that's probably the process that they should keep moving forward? Because there's always this argument of let the people vote. So how do you think about that?
I think meeting somewhere halfway would be the best possible option. A lot of hype is already created in the Eurovision world with the pre-selections. So getting that traction, I think, already gets you a lot of fans before you even being selected. I do believe that picking an artist that already has a catalog of music is the right way to go. But I guess like picking out a few artists like that and making them compete could be a great thing for viewers and artists.
I think it depends so much from country to country whether like a voted on competition can attract the more established artists.
Right.
I think in some countries those processes only attract kind of newer people, or then you have something like Melodifestivalen in Sweden, which the biggest artists in Sweden will compete.
Right. In Sweden, the big acts know that the whole country will stand behind them 100% with a big budget. I think it's also part of the reason why a lot like Slovenian reputable artists, let's say, avoided going to Eurovision.
I do think there's an element to Eurovision where a success of a bigger artist in the country can change sort of perception for other artists going into future years. I know I grew up in Norway when Alexander Rybak won. That really changed the popularity of the contest and what artists were interested.
I think there's actually even a thing on a greater scale, much greater scale. Artists in Slovenia now see that it is absolutely possible to go outside of our borders with Slovene language, which was absolutely never the case in the history of Slovene language.
You did bring up like another side of this, which was something that I think I noticed last year more than a few previous years, which is the difference in budgets of Eurovision acts. You have certain countries that are pouring $1 million into their acts.
We're literally at Euro Club in Liverpool when someone tipped me off to the pricing sheet for all the effects. It was not directly confirmed, but essentially confirmed. And there were wild prices.
Right. And so it's like how, if you're representing a country that's essentially not one of the big five, it in a certain way that puts you at a disadvantage. So did you guys feel that when you were in Liverpool?
I'd say for any artist which comes from a small country with a smaller budget, it is a quite disheartening realization of what you're up against. But it just takes a little bit more effort. And I think it makes it even sweeter in the end.
We became fans of Eurovision, not just for the winners, the whole competition and the whole thing itself. So it just comes down to what you're looking for in Eurovision.
So to talk a bit about Liverpool and that experience, I mean, it must have been wild.
I mean, the whole experience was quite draining, but more so physically than mentally, I'd say, because contrary to what we had expected, a lot of the competition elements, which we thought were going to be so present, were actually not. A lot of the co-competitors we met were actually really nice people, and we established some very friendly bonds with them.
There's actually been an idea. We were thinking of like booking an entire resort in May and just like inviting all the artists that were with us so we can watch Eurovision together in a completely like carefree setting, like by the pool, drinking pina coladas.
Yeah. You guys performed at Euro Club, like I think a night or two before the semi.
The Euro Club gig, especially, it was the first actual gig, or like the second actual gig we had in this year. And it was so liberating to finally be able to play like instruments and hear what you are playing on your guitar and like people reacting to your live concert.
Okay, I'm just going to add that for me, there was definitely a lot of pressure psychologically. It's crazy how many interviews you can have in such a short period of time. And just there was this huge fear for me for the first time ever of what the hell happens if I lose my voice and 160 million people are watching and I'm not able to sing. I was feeling a bit nauseous when we were talking about playing at the Euro Club 2 nights before, because so many things can go wrong. You can get ill or something.
Bojan, you and Käärijä, fans have been really going crazy over your friendship. I don't know if you've seen that people shipping you two together. In these stories, there are adventures in space, underwater, and also at late night discos. So Bojan, describe what you think your perfect date with Käärijä would be.
I think actually we've already had a perfect date with Käärijä. I would describe it as the final gig we had in Tampere. And we went to the sauna first, just the band. And after the sauna, we all went to a karaoke club and just spent a really cool night dancing and singing and having a great time, talking about things that are really deep, actually, at some moments. I've never had fan fiction written about me, and neither had Jere. And we talked about these things and we laughed about it. And for the first time, had a sincere conversation about how crazy is everything that's going on and how happy we were for each other that like things are going in the right direction. So yeah, I'd say that was already the perfect date.
Amazing. And wait, what were your guys' karaoke songs?
Ooh. You sang Flowers? We did. We sang Flowers.
You sang.
We sang Waterloo. Waterloo.
I saw Britney with someone with
Hit me,
we
we sang "Hit Me, Baby, One More Time."
yeah, and we sang Bass Hunter. All I
By Bass Hunter, and I just jumped into Titi Ebony of a poor girl who was trying to sing on her own.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Can you talk a bit about Novi Val and particularly then the English version and Elvis Costello collaboration? What was that like working with him?
It was really weird because we've never met him in person. We just talked over emails, and we had to find like a weird way of doing this over the internet. But I guess we got used to things like that during COVID. But it somehow created this really cool moment of us waiting for when is it going to be the first moment we meet Elvis, and when are we going to sing it together for the first time. We saw that Elvis had a concert in Oslo a day before our concert, and we just wrote an email saying that we would love to come see the show. So a matter of a day, we just came to the Opera House, met Elvis, had a sound check, and played in the freaking Oslo Opera House for the first time. And it was really something that you cannot make up.
We even got a standing ovation.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was really cool.
Carpe Diem and Novi Val were released in both Slovenian and English. The Sunny Side of London is just in English. Can you talk about that decision and what makes the song right for a multilingual release?
So multilingual releases are something that I'm pretty sure we're going to try and keep away from as much as possible in the future, just because it really doesn't work, or at least it didn't work for us. It worked in New Wave because it was Elvis writing the song, not me writing the lyrics, and also pouring himself into it because it was a duet.
How have things been after Eurovision? Tell us more about the touring, how things changed for you.
Life after Eurovision, I can't say it is exactly how we envisioned it, but it's definitely what we wanted, let's say, because we wanted to represent our country the best way possible. But also our, let's say, personal goals always have been to perform outside of Slovenia, and Eurovision definitely allowed us to do that.
You said that you've been accepting gigs all over the place. So I guess the natural question is, when are you coming to the US?
Yeah.
I don't know. The US is such a mystical place for European artists. It's always the question of when will we break the United States, and all of by the time our third album is out, when we have more English material, which will be much more palatable to a US audience, that is the time when we start appearing there, like in physical form.
Yeah, we are very excited for that day that you guys do. Thank you so much for spending the time with us. This was really great, guys.
Thank you. It was really deep and back to the roots. So thanks. Thanks for being so knowledgeable about the thing. And yeah, it means a lot to us.
No, seriously, thank you guys for deep diving with us on this. This was really cool.
All the mysteries of the Euroverse.